Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to el podcast del Salón de Idiomas. And hi, Lee. How are you doing? So good to see you here.
Hi, Alonso. Good morning. It's great to be back here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. I'm so happy and I'm so excited that you came back. I'm having all your interesting input about the Oxford University Press.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me once again.
Yeah. So how has everything been going over there?
Good. Well, I was here with you 9 months ago now.
Yeah.
And a lot has happened since then. We have launched the Oxford Test of English Advanced.
There
I
you
think
are.
that is the biggest piece of news. And we're really excited. And it's been very well received by the market. I mean schools, universities, language academies, a lot of people now taking that test and very happy with the results.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason why we're here, because we're going to be talking about the Oxford Exam Advanced. So for those who haven't watched that episode, we have an episode with Lee that was about the Oxford, but in a general level. So this one is a little bit more advanced, and of course, it also fits for all of you who are looking for C1 certification. Okay, great. So now, what else can you tell me about this exam, Lee?
Okay, so the Oxford Test of English Advanced, as you said, it complements the existing Oxford exams, which are the Oxford Test of English for schools and the Oxford Test of English, general, standard, however you want to call it. Those versions of the exams cover levels A2, B1, B2, and the Oxford Test of English Advanced covers B2, C1. So we're maintaining the multi-level aspect of it. We're maintaining the philosophy of it is not necessarily a pass-fail test. We want to make sure that you can hopefully get your C1, but if not, that you at least can have a B2 certificate.
Yeah.
It is still online, the Oxford Test of English Advanced. It still measures the 4 skills. It still lasts around 2 hours, so much shorter than other tests. And of course also very competitive in price. So that's what's similar between the Oxford Test of English Advanced and the other Oxford Test of English exams. What's different is that it produces a new certificate. So the Advanced certificate says Oxford Test of English Advanced on it with the logo, and it certifies either a B2 or a C1. I think this is important to mention because the Oxford Test of English Standard certifies up to B2, A2, B1, B2. That is the exam we recommend to certify A2, B1 and B2. In other words, once you have that B2, the Advanced is the exam or the test that is best suited to try and get to C1. I would not recommend personally the Advanced for a B2. I would recommend it more for a C1.
Speaking of recommendations, who do you recommend the Advanced to?
Well, anyone looking to certify a C1 level. So that could be a number of different audiences. It could be university students, whether they need it for university or to go traveling or on an Erasmus. It could be for employment purposes, like public employment or private employment. So here in Spain, public employment, we're talking about Opositores. And for example, in Madrid, where teachers need a C1.
This is the big news.
Yes.
Listen carefully, teachers.
Yes, I'm very excited to say that the Comunidad de Madrid will recognize the Oxford Test of English Advanced for teachers looking to work within bilingual schools. So for the Habilitación lingüística, as they call it, for the following year, 2025. So that will hopefully be published officially soon. And it can be used for that purpose. But like I said, for many other purposes, whether it's university, employment, or even some schools, a lot of bachillerato students these days with some phenomenal levels of English also looking to take Advanced and get their C1.
And they all can benefit from any kind of purpose that they have with this test as well, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, our idea with the Oxford Test of English suite, as we call it, the collection, is that this is an exam that's fast, 2 hours, that it's reliable, that you get some results that can be trusted because it's certified by the University of Oxford, that is competitive in price, and that helps you reach your objectives, whether it's travel, employment, etc. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, staying true to our philosophy of everyone can take this test. It's not about passing or failing, it's about seeing where you're at a given moment in time. And because it's a modular test, if you do need that B2 or that C1, being able to come back to retake whichever module you need to improve at, whether it's speaking, listening, reading, or writing.
Yeah, which is of course something that helps you a lot with your pressure. Like, I mean, you're not gonna fail. No matter what you do, you're not gonna fail. Like, you're just gonna have a certified level. Of course, it might not be your goal, but at least you have something. So of course, you can feel proud of yourself for the achievement that you have, right?
Exactly, that's the objective. Everyone gets something, and like you said, you might not fail, but you might not achieve that level that you're aiming for, in which case you can repeat the module that you need or the skill that you need to improve without having to retake or pay for the full test again.
Now, we have talked about how useful it can be in the professional background, this test. Now, I'm thinking about something more like, how is this test designed to appeal to these professionals, like educators, for instance?
Okay, so before we launched the Oxford Test of English Advanced, and like with any test or product that the Oxford University Press launches, before that there is a lot of investigation and research that takes place within the market. For the advanced, it was not just the academic and educational market, but also the professional market. And what we found was that academically and professionally, people were telling us, educators were telling us, employers were telling us that there was a lack of certain skills, particularly relating to mediation. So when I talk about mediation, it's things like not just translating from one language to another, but mediation within the same language. So if we talk about the English language, that could be a lecturer, a university lecturer giving a lecture in English, and the skills that you need to interpret that listening and turn it into writing with your note taking.
Okay.
Or it could be if you're listening to a couple of people, a couple of professionals or experts, for example, talking about a particular subject, if you then need to summarize that orally to someone, then again, how capable are you of mediating what you've listened to and then repeating that in a spoken fashion, or maybe summarizing, for example, two written texts. So in the professional world, this happens to me all the time. If I need to provide an executive summary for a director, you usually need to condense a lot of lengthy information into something which is shorter. So we try to incorporate all of that. We did incorporate all of that into the Oxford Test of English Advanced, responding to those market needs.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love the most about this test, is that those skills are not skills that you need for the test. No, those are skills that are really useful, generally speaking. And of course, you're preparing your exam, and you're like, and part of the assessment is that, but also being able to summarize and being able to interpret a lecture or something along those lines is extremely useful for any other kind of background. So that's wonderful. I love that.
I'm glad you like it, and absolutely, that's our new motto, if you like. Before, when we only had 3 levels, A2, B1, B2, it was 4 skills, 3 levels, 2 hours, and 1 test. Now, of course, we've grown, we have more tests, and the new motto is 4 skills, 4 levels, 4 life, because as you say, this prepares you for real life.
I love that. That sounds great. That's just fantastic. And of course, all these tools are also not only useful to all these professionals that we have mentioned before, but also students. Like, as you have mentioned, in a university lecture, it is necessary to be able to understand what the teacher is saying and being able to transform that in your notes to something actually useful, since otherwise you might end up writing something that it's extremely long and of course beats the purpose of a summary, right?
Well, exactly. Sometimes you have to be very specific and to the point. And speaking of university students, those people who are quite close to the professional market, getting their first jobs, we were mentioning before how important or how good the level of English is of school students these days. So students who leave school at 18 often have good levels of English, B2, some even have C1. And I always say to them, you're going to need your B1 or a B2 or a C1 for your university degree, to get your degree. But the higher the level you have, the more doors this will open for you professionally in the future. So yeah, if you're ready to take the advanced, even if you're at the end of your school years, or if you got your B2 at school and you're at university and you have time to continue practicing and studying your English, then yeah, I would say go for the C1 as well, because when you finish your degree, you will be a lot more employable if you have a higher level
Absolutely.
of English, well, or of any other language. The more languages you speak, the more employable you are.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of higher level, this is a common confusion that people may have. If you achieve the highest score in this test, do you get a C2 or not really?
Okay, not at all. So the reason why we don't certify, let me change my response. The reason why we certify B2 and C1 is because the test has B2 and C1 questions within it.
Okay.
Now, candidates might be able to demonstrate C2 levels of proficiency in their responses, but because we are not testing for specific C2 indicators or C2, the Common European Framework of Reference has descriptors for each level of the framework, and the descriptors for the C2 are not included within the advanced. So it would be unfair for us to certify a C2 just because someone has answered a B2 C1 exam or test really well.
Is there in the future any plans for a C2 certification maybe?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. I will ask the question and I will get back to you.
Now, if, of course, only if you were to release a new test, how long do you think that it takes to design a new format for that?
Gosh, well, that's probably a question for the academics, my colleagues back at Oxford University Press. I mean, I know it takes years. It takes a long time. There's a whole process which I'm not an expert at, but as I previously mentioned, there's a lot of market research. That research then turns into the structure of a test. The structure then needs questions. Those questions then need to be pre-tested around the world. So we need to make sure, for example, with advanced, we need to make sure that a Spanish person at a C1 level with a C1 level of English proficiency can answer a question from the test equally well as a Chinese person or a South African person who also has a C1 level of English language proficiency. There's no kind of cultural barriers there within the questions. There's no bias. So as you can see, there is so many things to take into consideration that, it takes years.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's not a piece of cake. Now, this takes me to one of my following questions. And of course, this might be not your strong suit, but I'm sure that you'll be able to give me a really nice answer. Now, what are the most challenging aspects of launching a new exam like this one, like the Oxford Advanced? And how do you ensure that it remains both rigorous and accessible?
Okay, well, I mean, that's a really good question. So the rigor, I think that's the name Oxford University Press, and the fact that the Oxford Test of English Advanced is certified by the University of Oxford speaks volumes about the rigor that is behind this and all that process that we just mentioned that went into designing it. In terms of accessibility, well, we've also mentioned for us it's important that everyone can access this test and doesn't face those fears of would I pass, would I fail, do I have to retake the whole test? So by making it modular and flexible and available on, well, any date that a test center chooses, we make it very accessible. But another important thing about launching a new test is no one really takes a test for the heck of it because they want to. They take a test to open a door to get to somewhere, whether it's a job or an Erasmus or to get a degree, etc. And for that, it's important that a test is recognized by universities, by ministries of education, by employers. And we launched the Oxford Test of English Advanced in April this year, 2024. So that was a few months ago now. And we are now, I'm happy to say, recognized by many of the institutions who already recognize the Oxford Test of English, also recognize the Oxford Test of English Advanced.
Wow. Awesome.
It's a work in progress.
Wow, that it's a record. Do it so fast, huh?
Well, it's the good thing is that this isn't a brand new exam that nobody knows. A lot of people already know the Oxford Test of English because it's been growing ever since we launched it 7 years ago. What I would always recommend to students, test takers, teachers, whoever wants to know what recognition it has is to go to our website, oxfordtestoфenglish.com. We have a recognition page there and you can check for what purposes it's valid.
Okay, Lee. Now, I have just one more question. How could someone prepare for this test?
It's a really important question.
Yeah.
Well, obviously doing a course with Salón de Idiomas. I know you prepare for
Thank you.
for all levels of the Common European Framework. And there are also online resources, free online resources that Oxford University Press has put on the website, on the Oxford Test of English website. And for advanced, we have, so first of all, my recommendation would be to have a look through the test specifications. So there's a document on the website that shows the structure of the Oxford Test of English Advanced, what kind of questions they're going to be answering. Then I would do the demo, which is also available online and it's free. It obviously doesn't give you a result. It doesn't certify, but it helps you familiarize yourself with the test. There are then some module tips. So some tips for the speaking, the listening, the reading, the writing for each of the advanced modules that I thoroughly recommend reading.
Wonderful.
And there is a online preparation course actually that is also on the website. It's between 12 to 15 hours long. We recommend it for any test taker who's going to take the test. And that coupled with the 2 C1 practice tests that are also freely available,
Wow.
I think should do the job. So if you've done your course with Salón de Idiomas, you feel confident, like you're ready to take the test, and your teacher says, yeah, you could definitely certify a C1, familiarize yourself with those resources, and you're ready to go.
Okay, great. Fantastic. So now, to wrap this up, Lee, why would someone choose this test over others?
Oh, so many reasons, Alonso, so many. Well, first of all, it's the Oxford Test of English is certified. I'm just going to repeat that because it's important by the University of Oxford. And the University of Oxford, you see, for a test that's been in the market for some 7 years, a lot of people talk about prestige, and the University of Oxford has been ranked as best university in the world, #1 for the last 8 consecutive years by the Times Higher Education Rankings. So there is a lot of prestige in taking the Oxford Test of English. Of course, that's not the only reason people take it. They take it to satisfy a particular purpose and need. So recognition is another important aspect. Widely recognized in Spain, but in another 50 countries as well, by some 700 institutions globally.
Wonderful.
And on the practical side, the reasons would be the ones we've mentioned throughout the interview, which are practicality. So it's flexible. You can choose the dates. It's 2 hours. It's modular, so you can retake whichever skill you need to improve. It's really competitive in price. It's adaptive, so the perception is it's not too difficult, it's not too easy, it is at your level. And I always say this is like your companion in the language learning journey. So this isn't a hurdle that you're going to jump over at a particular point in life. This is a test you're going to take at a given point. It's a photo. This is where I'm at the moment. And I know I can come back to this in 6 months, in a year, to get my next level, my B2 or my C1. So lots of different reasons. And where best to do it than Salón de Idiomas?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So yeah, actually, we can take this over here, right?
Yes. And I imagine you could offer a range of dates, which...
Yeah, absolutely. For everybody who's interested, you can take the Oxford Advanced Test as well as the general one here in Salón de Idiomas every Friday of each month. So come here and get certified over here.
Wow, that's really flexible and really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think that with this, we have covered everything up, and I am so happy to have you here back, Lee. It's so wonderful to talk to you once again.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and I look forward to coming back again soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe for the C2, who knows?
Who knows? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Lee. Do you have one last message to send to our listeners?
One last message for the listeners.
Yes, please.
I would say, keep practicing your English, keep certifying your English. The higher the level you certify, the more doors it's going to open for you. And there's a number of language tests in the market, a number of exams. The Salón de Idiomas website for me is really informative. Seriously, I think you've done such a great job there of explaining how each exam works, the differences between each one, the purposes for which you might need one or another. So yeah, if you do have any queries, visit the Salón de Idiomas website And yeah, just once again, thank you for having me. Real
No,
pleasure.
thank you so much, Lee, and thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again over here. Well, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Lee.
Bye.